It was an ordinary afternoon in the peaceful neighborhood of Maplewood. The sun was shining softly through the branches of towering oak trees, birds chirped cheerfully, and the gentle hum of distant lawnmowers filled the air. Emily, a quiet and thoughtful 10-year-old, was making her way home from school. She walked along the familiar sidewalks, her backpack bouncing lightly with each step, lost in her own world of daydreams about the upcoming weekend. Emily loved her route home. It took her past friendly neighbors' houses, where colorful flower beds lined the sidewalks, and occasionally she would stop to greet Mr. Thompson, the retired firefighter, who always had a kind smile and a story to share. But today, something unexpected was about to disrupt her peaceful walk. As Emily rounded the corner near the Johnsons' house, a shadow suddenly appeared on the pavement ahead. She looked up just in time to see a massive dog bounding toward her, its muscular frame moving with surprising speed. The dog's ears were perked, and its tail was wagging. But to Emily it was terrifying. She had always been a little afraid of dogs, especially big ones. The sight of the huge animal running directly at her sent a jolt of panic through her body. Her heart began pounding loudly in her chest. She dropped her backpack without thinking and bolted down the sidewalk, her small legs pumping as fast as they could carry her. "Help! Somebody help!" she called out, her voice trembling. The dog was close behind, its powerful paws thudding on the concrete in quick, steady beats. Emily's breath came in sharp gasps, and tears welled up in her eyes. From nearby houses and porches, neighbors suddenly looked up, alarmed by the commotion. Doors opened, and people stepped outside, their faces a mix of concern and confusion. "What's going on?" Mrs. Patel, the neighbor across the street, called out as she peered toward the scene. Emily's frantic running didn't slow as she darted past yards and parked cars. She kept glancing back, terrified that the dog might leap at her any second. But the dog wasn't snarling or baring its teeth. It seemed focused and urgent, its eyes locked on Emily as if determined to catch up. Some neighbors grabbed their phones ready to dial animal control or call for help. Others shouted warnings, "Stay away from the dog," and "Get to safety." The street quickly became crowded with curious onlookers, watching as the tense chase unfolded. Despite her fear, Emily's mind raced. She wondered if she had somehow angered the dog, or if it was simply wild and out of control. She remembered her mother's words about not running from dogs because it could provoke them, but she was too scared to stop. Every instinct screamed for her to keep moving. As Emily neared the corner of the busy intersection at Maple Street, her legs suddenly gave out. She tripped on a crack in the sidewalk and fell forward, scraping her knees and palms. Pain shot through her skin, but she didn't have time to cry. The dog was almost upon her now. The bystanders gasped. The tension in the air was thick. Would the dog attack? Would this terrifying moment end in disaster? Instead, the dog stopped inches from Emily and let out a loud bark. Not at her, but toward the street. Emily looked up through tears, confused, and still scared. The dog's gaze was fixed beyond her, alert and watchful. Then the crowd's attention shifted. From down the street, a car was coming fast, its brakes screeching as the driver suddenly noticed the stop sign. The dog stood firm between Emily and the vehicle, barking fiercely, as if warning the driver to stop before tragedy could happen. The car came to a sudden halt just feet from the crosswalk where Emily had fallen. Hearts pounded, breaths held, and the neighborhood stood frozen for a moment, unsure what to do next. Emily lay still, staring at the dog that had chased her, but now seemed more like a guardian. The story unfolding was far from what anyone had expected. As the dust settled from the sudden stop of the car, the street buzzed with a mix of shock and relief. Emily still lay on the cracked sidewalk, her scraped knees throbbing, her breath shaky from the fall and the chase. The massive dog, its dark eyes shining with alertness, stood protectively beside her, barking sharply at the driver, who was now staring wide-eyed from behind the wheel. Neighbors who had gathered along the sidewalks exchanged confused glances. Some crossed the street to get closer, their faces a blend of worry and curiosity. Mrs. Patel hurried over, her hands trembling slightly as she crouched beside Emily. "Are you okay, dear?" she asked softly, brushing stray hair away from Emily's tear-streaked face. Emily nodded, still trying to catch her breath. I think so, she whispered. The dog, who had seemed like a threat just moments before, now seemed like her. Unlikely protector, but the neighbors didn't know exactly what to make of the situation. The dog's size and sudden appearance had initially scared everyone. Now seeing it so close to Emily, who was still visibly shaken, made them cautious. "Someone call animal control," a man in a blue jacket suggested loudly. "We don't know if that dog is safe." Phones appeared like magic in hands everywhere. Some people started dialing emergency numbers while others tried to calm Emily and keep her sitting safely off the curb. The driver of the car, a young woman with worried eyes, stepped out, apologizing profusely for nearly causing an accident. "I didn't see the stop sign," she admitted, her voice shaking as she looked toward Emily and the dog. Meanwhile, the dog's bark continued, though now it was less frantic and more watchful. It didn't approach the driver, instead turning its gaze back to Emily. There was something in the dog's stance, a mix of vigilance and calm, that suggested it wasn't a wild animal or a threat. Yet no one dared to get too close at first. The dog's size was intimidating, and despite its protective behavior, the instinct to be cautious was strong. A few people pulled out treats from their pockets or bags, hoping to distract or soothe the dog, but it remained focused on Emily. Standing like a guardian on alert, Mrs. Patel, who had lived on this street for over 20 years, called out to a nearby young man, "Do you know whose dog this is?" The man shook his head. "No idea, I've never seen him around." That only added to the mystery. How had this big dog appeared so suddenly? Was it lost? Stray? Dangerous? The driver of the car finally found her voice again. "I'm so sorry," she said to Emily, kneeling down at a safe distance. "I never meant to scare you." Emily managed a small, grateful smile but didn't speak. She was still overwhelmed by the whole experience. A few more neighbors gathered, some pulling their own kids inside for safety, others standing close enough to witness every detail. Whispers filled the air. "What's that dog's name? Where did he come from? Did anyone hear barking before this?" The scene was intense, a moment frozen in time. No one could yet explain why the dog had run after Emily, or why it had stopped just before something terrible happened. Suddenly, from down the street, a voice shouted, "Mrs. Landry, is that Max?" Heads turned toward the sound. An elderly woman appeared, rushing toward the crowd with urgency in her step. She wore a sun hat and carried a small purse, her face etched with worry. The neighbors parted as Mrs. Landry came closer, eyes scanning the scene. When she spotted Emily and the large dog standing guard, her face softened immediately. "Max," she called, voice gentle but firm. The dog's tail wagged slightly, and it relaxed its posture just a bit. Mrs. Landry reached Emily quickly, kneeling beside her. "Are you all right, sweetie?" she asked softly. Emily nodded again, now recognizing the woman. "Max is a good boy," Mrs. Landry reassured everyone around. "He wouldn't hurt anyone." The mystery began to unravel as Mrs. Landry explained that Max had slipped out of her yard moments earlier. She had been searching frantically for him. "Max is trained to look out for children," she said. "He's always been gentle, but he's protective. Sometimes he chases after kids to make sure they're safe, not to scare them." The neighbors exchanged surprised looks. The dog, who had seemed so frightening just minutes before, was actually a loyal guardian, watching out for the neighborhood's children in his own way. Emily reached out and gently petted Max's huge head, her fear slowly melting into trust. The crowd, now less tense and more amazed, started to see Max in a new light. As the moment calmed, people began chatting excitedly, sharing their relief and marveling at what had just happened. The neighborhood, which had been shaken for a moment, was already starting to come back to its usual calm, but with a new story to tell. As the initial tension began to fade, a different kind of energy took hold of the small crowd gathering on Maplewood's quiet street. What started as a frightening chase was quickly turning into a story no one could have predicted. Emily, still, sitting on the sidewalk, slowly wiped tears from her cheeks while Max, the massive dog, remained standing close by, his deep brown eyes scanning the street as if watching over her. Most neighbors had never seen a dog behave quite like this before. Max was huge, towering over many of them with his thick, glossy fur and powerful muscles. It was easy to understand why Emily had been so scared at first, but now it was clear the dog wasn't acting like a typical stray or aggressive animal. Instead, there was something almost deliberate and protective in his every movement. "I've never seen a dog do that," Mrs. Patel whispered to a nearby neighbor, her voice tinged with awe. "He didn't chase her to hurt her. It's like he was watching out for her." Curious eyes turned toward the street again as the driver of the car, still shaken from the near accident, nervously spoke to the gathering crowd. "I honestly didn't see her or the dog at first," she admitted, wringing her hands. "The stop sign is right there, but I guess I was distracted. Max must have seen me coming." Mrs. Landry nodded, standing protectively beside Max. "Max is special. I've trained him for years to be around children. He's gentle but very alert, especially near the street. He's saved kids from dangers more times than I can count." The neighbors exchanged glances, surprised and impressed. The dog, who had caused such fear just minutes ago, was now a neighborhood hero in the making. Suddenly, a little boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, pointing toward Max. "Mom, why was the dog barking so loud?" Was he mad? His mother smiled gently, trying to explain the situation in a way her son could understand. "No, honey. Max was trying to keep Emily safe. Sometimes dogs bark to warn us when something isn't right." Emily looked up at Max, her eyes wide. She reached out hesitantly to stroke his head. The dog leaned into her touch, his tongue lolling out in a friendly pant. It was as if he understood that she was no longer scared of him. Nearby, a few people snapped photos and recorded videos on their phones. The story of the brave dog and the terrified girl was already starting to spread on social media. Comments poured in from neighbors who hadn't been there, but were captivated by the unfolding tale. Meanwhile, Emily's scraped knees had stopped bleeding, and the shock was beginning to wear off. She started to ask questions, her curiosity growing stronger than her fear. "Why did Max run after me?" she asked Mrs. Landry. Mrs. Landry smiled warmly. "Max isn't chasing you because he's mean or wild," she explained. "He ran after you because he saw you near the street and wanted to make sure you were safe. When you fell, he stayed by your side to protect you from the car that was coming." The crowd murmured in amazement. No one had expected the massive dog to be so caring and attentive. One of the neighbors, Mr. Lee, who was known for his love of animals, stepped forward. "I think Max deserves a medal," he joked. "He just saved a little girl's life." Laughter rippled through the crowd, easing the tension further. Max wagged his tail, clearly enjoying the attention. The community's perception of Max shifted completely. What had seemed like a frightening incident was now a powerful reminder of how animals can surprise us with their loyalty and intelligence. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over Maplewood, Emily's mother arrived, rushing over with a worried look that softened into relief when she saw her daughter safe. She thanked Mrs. Landry and Max, kneeling down to hug Emily tightly. The neighbors slowly started to disperse, chatting excitedly about the day's events. Many promised to keep a closer eye on the neighborhood and to be thankful for heroes, both human and canine, who watch over them. Emily looked back at Max one last time before heading home. She whispered softly, "Thank you." The dog gave a low, happy bark in reply. What had started as a terrifying moment had turned into something unforgettable, binding a girl, a dog, and a whole community together in a story that no one would soon forget. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across Maplewood's quiet streets as the crowd remained gathered near the corner where Emily had nearly been struck by the car. The atmosphere was a mixture of relief and lingering tension. Everyone was still processing the near disaster that had been narrowly avoided, thanks to the unexpected actions of Max, the massive dog. For many, the image of Max standing boldly between Emily and the speeding vehicle was etched clearly in their minds. It was a scene straight out of a movie, only this was real life unfolding right in front of their eyes. The driver of the car, a young woman named Sarah, had barely come to terms with what had just happened. She kept glancing at the stop sign. She had missed and shaking her head in disbelief. "I can't believe I almost hit her," she said softly, her voice filled with guilt. "I didn't see Emily until Max started barking. Sarah's words reminded the crowd of how close the accident had come. The stop sign was visible, but the corner was shaded by tall trees, and the sun was low enough that glare may have played a part. It was an accident waiting to happen, and only quick reflexes and Max's presence had saved Emily from harm. Mrs. Landry, Max's owner, stood near Sarah, gently stroking Max's thick fur. "Max always senses danger before we do," she said with quiet pride. "He's been watching over the kids in this neighborhood for years. Sometimes I worry he's a little too protective." A few neighbors nodded in agreement, having witnessed Max's protective nature in the past. Some recalled stories of Max chasing away loose dogs or barking loudly to alert someone when a stranger approached. Emily, though still a little shaken, was beginning to understand what had happened. She slowly stood up, brushing dirt off her jeans and rubbing her scraped knees. Her eyes remained fixed on Max, who wagged his tail but stayed alert. As Emily's mother, Mrs. Carter, arrived on the scene, her worry quickly turned to gratitude. "Thank you," she said to Mrs. Landry, and everyone gathered. "I don't know what would have happened without Max." Mrs. Landry smiled humbly. "He's just a dog doing his job." The police arrived shortly after, responding to calls about the near accident and the loose dog. Officers spoke with Sarah, Mrs. Landry, and several neighbors to get a full picture of what had occurred. They commended Max's actions, noting how rare it was to see an animal respond with such intelligence and care. One officer approached Emily and handed her a small badge that read, "Neighborhood Hero." "For bravery and quick thinking," he said with a warm smile. Emily's face lit up with pride, though she was quick to share the honor. "Max saved me," she said shyly. The crowd around them cheered, the mood shifting from worry to celebration. It was a community coming together, united by a shared experience that reminded them of the importance of watching out for one another. Meanwhile, Sarah sat on the curb, still shaken but thankful. She reflected on how easily the day could have ended differently. "I'm going to be more careful," she promised, looking at the stop sign as if seeing it for the first time. Max, sensing the tension was easing, relaxed his stance. He let out a soft bark and nuzzled Emily's hand, reassuring her. Emily smiled and hugged him tightly, grateful for her unexpected protector. As the sun dipped below the horizon, neighbors slowly began to return to their homes, talking animatedly about what they had witnessed. The story of Max's bravery would soon spread beyond Maplewood, a tale of courage and loyalty that would inspire many. For Emily, the day had been terrifying, confusing, and ultimately life-changing. She now saw Max not as a scary dog, but as a loyal friend who had run toward danger to keep her safe. And for Max, the day was just another reminder of why he watched over his neighborhood with such fierce dedication. His bark was loud, his presence commanding, but it was all for those he loved. As the evening settled over Maplewood, the neighborhood's fear slowly began to transform into something quite different: wonder and awe. The story of the massive dog and the terrified girl who had run from him was no longer just a tale of panic. It had become a story of unexpected heroism and loyalty. Emily sat quietly on her front porch, her mother beside her, softly brushing her hair back from her forehead. The scrape on her knee throbbed, but it was a small price to pay for the lesson she had learned. Max, the massive dog, was no longer a creature to fear. He was a guardian, a protector, whose fierce bark had saved her life that afternoon. Word of... The incident spread quickly through the neighborhood and beyond. People who hadn't seen the chase were now eager to hear every detail. Neighbors who had witnessed the event retold it to friends and family, their voices filled with amazement. The shift in perception was remarkable. The once frightening dog had become a symbol of courage. Mrs. Landry, Max's owner, found herself at the center of attention more than she had expected. She patiently answered questions and shared stories about Max's training and personality. "He's a gentle giant," she explained, "but he has a strong sense of duty. When he sees children near the street, he takes his job seriously." As she spoke, neighbors began to recall other times Max had shown his protective instincts. There was the time he had barked loudly to alert Mrs. Patel that a window in her house was left open during a rainstorm. Another neighbor remembered how Max had helped herd a stray dog away from the playground where children were playing. "It's incredible how much animals understand," Mr. Lee, a long-time dog lover, said to a small group. "Max is proof that loyalty and intelligence come in all shapes and sizes." For Emily, the change in how people saw Max was a relief. She no longer feared his massive paws or his deep bark. Instead, she felt a bond growing between them. She visited Mrs. Landry often, eager to spend time with Max and learn more about him. One afternoon, Emily asked Mrs. Landry, "How did Max know to protect me from the car?" Mrs. Landry smiled warmly. "Max has been trained to watch out for children, especially near busy streets. He senses danger and reacts quickly. It's like he knows when someone needs help." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad he was there." The bond between the girl and the dog deepened over the weeks that followed. Max became more than just a neighborhood guardian. He was Emily's friend. She would bring him treats and brush his fur, and Max would greet her with gentle licks and happy tail wags. The community, too, embraced Max's new role. The neighborhood association decided to hold a small gathering to celebrate Max's bravery and dedication. Flyers went up around town inviting families to come meet the hero dog who had saved a little girl. The event was a heartwarming success. Children played with Max under the watchful eyes of their parents, and neighbors shared stories and laughter. Max seemed to enjoy every moment, basking in the attention, but always alert, ready to step in if needed. As the sun set that evening, Emily stood beside Max, feeling a sense of gratitude and awe. What had started as a terrifying chase had blossomed into a powerful reminder of the unexpected ways kindness and courage can appear. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a protector, a friend and a hero in the eyes of a whole neighborhood, and for everyone who witnessed his brave act, the lesson was clear. Sometimes, those we fear most are the ones who care for us the deepest. The day of the celebration dawned bright and clear in Maplewood, carrying with it an air of excitement and gratitude. Flyers posted around the neighborhood promised a gathering in honor of Max, the massive dog whose brave actions had saved young Emily's life. What began as a moment of fear had transformed into a source of pride for the entire community. Families started arriving early at the local park, a favorite spot just a few blocks from Emily's home. Colorful balloons swayed gently in the breeze, and picnic blankets were spread out on the grass. Children ran around laughing, some clutching dog toys, eager to play with Max. The scent of freshly baked cookies and barbecue filled the air as neighbors contributed dishes to share in true community spirit. Emily arrived with her mother, her face glowing with happiness and a touch of shyness. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a small basket of treats, specially picked for Max. The massive dog bounded over the moment he saw her, his tail wagging furiously, his joyful energy infectious. Mrs. Landry stood nearby, proud but modest, answering questions from curious neighbors about Max's training and temperament. "Max is special," she told the crowd. "He's gentle, loving, and fiercely protective of our neighborhood's children." As the gathering grew, the local mayor, Mr. Jenkins, stepped forward to address the crowd. He held a small plaque in his hands, which he presented to Mrs. Landry with a warm smile. "Today we honor Max as a true hero," he announced. "His courage and loyalty remind us all of the bond between humans and animals and the importance of community care." Applause erupted as Mrs. Landry accepted the award on Max's behalf. Max barked happily, sensing the positive energy around him. Emily joined her, standing proudly beside the dog who had become her friend and protector. Throughout the afternoon, neighbors shared stories about Max's past deeds. Mrs. Patel recounted how Max had once alerted her to a fire that started in her kitchen, barking loudly enough to wake her and call for help. Mr. Lee spoke of Max's role in deterring a group of strangers who had wandered into the neighborhood late at night. Every story added to the growing legend of Max's vigilance. Children took turns playing fetch with Max, laughing as he chased after balls and frisbees with surprising agility for such a large dog. Emily watched with a smile, her earlier fear replaced by deep affection and respect. The celebration was more than just a party. It was a reminder of how one act of bravery could unite a community. People who had barely spoken to each other before found themselves chatting and sharing laughs. The event sparked a sense of togetherness that hadn't been felt in Maplewood for years. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, the crowd slowly started to disperse. Emily knelt beside Max, gently, rubbing behind his ears. "Thank you, Max," she whispered, "for everything." Max looked up at her with eyes full of trust and love, his tail thumping the ground. That evening, as Emily lay in bed, she thought about the day's events. The fear she had felt earlier that week seemed like a distant memory. What remained was a profound gratitude for Max, for her neighbors, and for the power of kindness that had turned a terrifying moment into a celebration of courage. Max's story would live on in Maplewood, a testament to the incredible bond between a girl and a dog who refused to let anything harm those he loved. In the days following the celebration, Maplewood felt different, as if the whole neighborhood had been quietly transformed by what happened with Emily and Max. The story of the massive dog's bravery and the terrified girl's survival wasn't just a tale people talked about. It was a turning point that sparked unexpected friendships and a newfound respect between neighbors. Emily's confidence grew noticeably. No longer frightened by Max, she eagerly visited Mrs. Landry's house to spend time with the dog, who had become her loyal companion. Each afternoon, the two would walk around the neighborhood together, Max's steady presence giving Emily a sense of safety she had never felt before. Neighbors who had once been strangers now stopped to greet each other. Conversations began over fences and during walks. Parents felt more comfortable letting their children play outside, knowing Max was on watch. The community's collective spirit was renewed, and it was clear that Max's actions had done more than just save a life. They had healed a neighborhood. Mrs. Landry noticed the change too. "Max has always been part of this community," she said one morning to Emily's mother, "but now people see him for what he truly is, a protector and a friend." Emily's mother smiled, grateful for the dog's calming influence on her daughter. "It's amazing how one dog can bring so many people together," she said. One afternoon, as Emily and Max strolled through the park, they ran into Mr. Lee, the longtime dog lover who had been so impressed by Max's bravery. "Hey, Emily!" he called, waving. "Looks like Max's legend is growing every day." Emily grinned. "He's my hero," Mr. Lee chuckled. "I've been thinking about starting a neighborhood dog-walking group. It could be a way for everyone to get to know each other better and keep an eye on our furry friends." Emily's eyes lit up. "That sounds fun. Can I help?" "Absolutely," Mr. Lee said. "The more the merrier." As the idea took root, more neighbors expressed interest. What had started as a simple act of bravery inspired a community initiative to care for one another and for their pets. Meanwhile, Emily's schoolteacher noticed a positive change in her demeanor. "You seem so much more confident lately," Ms. Turner remarked one day. Emily smiled shyly but nodded. She told her teacher about Max and the celebration in the park. "That's wonderful, Emily," Ms. Turner said warmly. "Sometimes a little courage goes a long way." At home, Emily kept a scrapbook filled with photos and newspaper clippings about Max and their story. She added new memories with every visit and walk. Max had become a part of her life, a constant source of comfort and joy. One evening, as Emily lay in bed, she thought about how fear had turned into friendship. The giant dog who once terrified her was now her protector and closest companion. In the quiet moments before sleep, Emily whispered, "Thank you, Max, for everything." Outside, Max lay curled up by Mrs. Landry's feet, dreaming peacefully after a day full of love and adventure. The bond between girl and dog had not only saved a life but had woven a community together with threads of kindness and trust. And as Maplewood's streets grew quieter under the stars, the story of Emily and Max continued to inspire hope and remind everyone that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. The days turned into weeks, and the story of Emily and Max became a beloved chapter in the life of Maplewood. The massive dog who had once caused fear now inspired hope, and the terrified girl who ran from him had grown into a confident young friend and protector of the neighborhood. Their bond had changed not only their own lives, but the entire community. Max's presence had become a daily comfort to many. He patrolled the streets with quiet vigilance, his size no longer intimidating but reassuring. Children waved and called his name, and adults greeted him with smiles. He was a symbol of safety, loyalty, and unexpected heroism. Emily's parents noticed the change in their daughter. She was more outgoing at school, more eager to help others, and more willing to face challenges without hesitation. Max had given her something precious: courage. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emily and Max joined the new neighborhood dog-walking group that Mr. Lee had helped organize. The group had grown steadily, bringing together families and their pets for regular walks and social gatherings. It was a tradition that strengthened the community's bonds and kept Max's legacy alive. As they walked, Emily glanced at Max and smiled. He looked back, his tail wagging gently, eyes full of trust. Together, they were part of something bigger than themselves. The local newspaper ran a feature story about the dog-walking group and the incredible friendship between Emily and Max. Photos showed the pair leading a pack of happy dogs and smiling neighbors. The story inspired nearby towns to start similar groups, spreading the message of community care and animal friendship far beyond Maplewood. At home, Emily carefully added the newspaper clipping to her scrapbook, a keepsake of a journey that had begun with fear and ended in friendship. She traced her fingers over Max's photo, grateful for the dog who had changed her life forever. Mrs. Landry often watched Emily and Max with a proud heart. "You've both grown so much," she told Emily one afternoon. "Max will always be here for you." Emily hugged Mrs. Landry, her eyes shining. "And I'll always be here for Max." Their friendship was a reminder that love and loyalty could overcome even the scariest moments. One evening, as the sun set and the neighborhood lights flickered on, Emily sat on the porch with Max lying at her feet. The world around them felt peaceful and full of promise. Max let out a soft sigh and rested his head on Emily's lap. She stroked his fur slowly, feeling the steady beat of his heart. In that quiet moment, Emily understood something important. Sometimes, the things that scare us most are the very things that protect us. Max had shown her that courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about standing strong, even when fear was there. The story of the terrified girl and the massive dog was no longer just about a frightening chase. It was about friendship, bravery, and the unexpected ways life could bring people and animals together. And in Maplewood, that story would be told for years to come, because some bonds are built to last forever.